I was 25 when my sister Madison sent the group text that shattered what little illusion I had left. Save the date, everyone. It's happening. Tuscany, June 14th. Attached was a dreamy photo of a sun-drenched Italian villa draped in lavender, vines crawling up limestone columns, a view that poured into rolling golden hills like a scene from a romantic film. It was exactly her, Pinterest perfect, curated, polished, and me? I was excited. Not for the setting, not even for the food or travel. I just wanted to be there. Beside her. Included. Growing up, we weren't close in the traditional sisterly way. Madison was 4 years older, always composed, always admired. My parents called her our little diplomat. I was the quieter one, the emotional one, the kid who spent too much time drawing or reading under the kitchen table. Still, I assumed blood meant something. I assumed being her sister counted for something. Turns out it didn't count for much. A few weeks before the wedding, when details were getting finalized and the family chat was buzzing about packing lists and luggage tags, I called my mom. I just needed the basics, flight info, room assignment. Nothing big. She answered with her usual upbeat voice. Hi, sweetheart. Everything good? Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the flight. Do I have the itinerary or should I book my own ticket? There was a pause, the kind that stretches too long to be innocent. Oh, Lily, sweetheart. I thought you'd just figure it out. We kind of didn't include you in the flight list. We gave the last seat to one of the groom's investors. He's helping with the honeymoon fund. My hand gripped the phone tighter. I blinked at the wall across from me as if I'd misheard her. Wait, so, I'm not on the flight? She sighed. Honey, it was a complicated process, and you're so independent. We figured you'd be okay finding your own way. Independent, that word again, the one they always used when they didn't want to feel guilty. I took a breath, held it. Okay, what about the villa? I assume I still have a room. Another pause. Then, carefully, we ended up giving your room to Aunt Rachel. She needed the space, and she's more senior. Aunt Rachel, the same one who skipped Thanksgiving last year because she didn't feel comfortable being around Lily right now. The one who said my heartbreak made the mashed potatoes feel too heavy. That Aunt Rachel. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat and smiled, because that's what I do. Got it. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. That night, I found a cheap hostel in Florence for $24 a night. 2 bunk beds, a window that wouldn't shut properly, and a shared bathroom that reeked of damp towels. I booked it. Not because I couldn't afford better, but because I no longer wanted better. I wanted distance. I packed light. A dress I'd never get to wear, 1 pair of heels, and my journal. I landed in Italy 3 days before the wedding. No one called to ask if I'd arrived safely. No one asked if I was coming. No one noticed I had disappeared from the group chat. They thought I'd stayed home. But I was there. Close enough to see the ceremony. Far enough to finally see everything clearly. From the top of the hill, the villa looked unreal, like a painting someone had commissioned to capture the perfect day. The late afternoon sun bathed everything in that cinematic gold that filters through olive branches, warm and weightless. Even from a distance, I could hear the clinking of glasses and the low hum of strings. Someone had hired a quartet, of course. I parked the Vespa just out of sight, tucked behind a hedge where the gravel path bent. The irony wasn't lost on me. They thought I couldn't figure out how to get there, and yet here I was close enough to hear Dad's voice crack halfway through his toast. I hadn't planned to spy on them. I didn't even know if I'd come this far until my feet just did it. One turn after another, my body kept moving even when my chest felt like it was full of sand. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I just wanted to see what it looked like when a family celebrated without you. Rows of white chairs formed neat lines in front of a floral arch made of pale pink roses and baby's breath. Soft pastel linens draped every table like a magazine spread. I could make out Madison's silhouette in her Vera Wang gown, stripless, ivory, the kind she always dreamed of. Her laugh floated on the breeze, effortless and light, the kind of laugh you give when you're exactly where you're supposed to be. My mother hovered nearby, phone in hand, angling for the best shots as if she were directing a live commercial for our family's brand. Her smile was fixed in place. She looked proud, composed, whole. And then there was my father standing in front of the crowd with a flute of champagne, launching into one of his famous toasts. I couldn't make out every word, but I knew the rhythm by heart. He was probably telling the story of how Madison learned to ride a bike, how she never gave up. how she was destined for greatness. There'd be a mention of grace, strength, radiance, all the things I was told I should strive for but never quite embodied. I sat down on a worn wooden bench across from a tiny gelato stand. A boy handed me a pistachio cone. I ate it slowly, not really tasting it, the cold a distraction more than a treat. I watched from the shadows while they toasted, clapped, laughed, while my chair, wherever it was supposed to be, sat empty and unnoticed. No one texted. No one called to ask, "Where's Lily?" No one said my name into a microphone. I wasn't missed, not even enough to be an afterthought. It hit me then, not like a sudden crash but like slow erosion. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited properly. It was that no one fought for me to be there. No one made room. No one noticed the hole I thought I filled. After the final song played and the lights began to glow in the courtyard, I stood up. I dusted off the back of my dress. I walked back to the Vespa and didn't look behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even text goodbye. I just vanished. And the world kept spinning, perfect, pastel, and untouched. I didn't plan to vanish. Not really. There was no dramatic vow scribbled in a notebook or shouted from a rooftop. I didn't declare, "I'm never coming back." I just stopped showing up, for birthdays that forgot me, for calls that never came, for a family that had long since decided I was optional. And once I stopped showing up for them, I started showing up for myself. I began in Barcelona, sleeping in a hostel room with 7 other travelers, each of us carrying our own kind of invisible ache. The air smelled like sea salt and sweat, and the promise of anonymity. I walked the winding streets of the Gothic Quarter until my feet blistered, and the ache in my chest dulled to something bearable. For the first time in years, no one knew who I was. No one expected anything. It was terrifying. It was thrilling. From there, I drifted south. Granada, Seville, Cadiz. I learned how to order coffee in Spanish, how to keep my wallet safe on the metro, and how to find the cheapest, flakiest croissants at the corner bakery. I journaled on rooftops and cried into hostel pillows and danced in plazas where music spilled from alleyways like honey. Each day, I stitched together a version of myself I'd never met before, someone braver, lonelier, freer. In Aix-en-Provence, I took a week-long cooking course from a sharp-tongued French woman named Colette who believed butter could solve most problems. I stirred soups while she scolded my knife technique and told me matter-of-factly, "You cut like a woman who apologizes too much." I stopped apologizing. I started seasoning with more confidence. By the end of the week, I could make coq au vin without a recipe and say no in 2 languages without flinching. In Croatia, I volunteered at a wildlife sanctuary. I cleaned cages, fed foxes, and spent quiet mornings scrubbing mud from my boots. There was a hedgehog named Otto who would only eat if you sang to him. I found myself humming aimless lullabies and laughing, really laughing, when he finally took a bite. There was no audience, no approval to chase. Just me, the animals, and the steady rhythm of care. Then came the tiny sect village where I taught English to children who couldn't pronounce my name, but brought me dandelions every morning. They asked about my life back home. I didn't know how to explain what I had left behind, so I didn't. Instead, I taught them new words like belonging and kindness and start. In every country, I met people who didn't know my family, who didn't see me as someone's emotional one, or too quiet, or too much. They saw a girl who carried a second-hand backpack and kept her heart just slightly guarded. A girl who listened more than she spoke, who offered stories slowly and laughed with her whole face. They saw Lily, not the sister, not the daughter, just me. I celebrated my 26th birthday in a candlelit bar in Portugal. No reminders were sent. No one needed to be guilted into showing up. They were there because they wanted to be. They raised glasses and sang in accents stitched from every corner of the world. And I cried, but this time the tears tasted like something close to gratitude. I lived on €20 a day and somehow felt wealthier than I ever had in my parents' 5-bedroom house. The bitterness unraveled thread by thread. The silence I once feared became sanctuary. And somewhere in the middle of foreign cities and foreign tongues, I became real to myself. Not forgotten. Not excluded. Not missing. Free. The day the voicemail came, Lisbon was alive in a way that made it hard to feel lonely. It was late afternoon, the kind of light that paints every tile brighter, that makes even crumbling stone walls look holy. The breeze off the Tagus was warm, and my laundry fluttered like flags of truce from the balcony of my rented apartment. I was drinking strong coffee that had gone lukewarm and trying to sketch the skyline badly when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't listen. I'd stopped expecting anything from numbers I didn't recognize. People from the past didn't tend to call. And when they did, they usually wanted to soothe their own guilt, not see how you were actually doing. But something made me press play. The voice on the other end was Madison's. At first, I didn't believe it. Not because I didn't recognize her, but because she wasn't performing. Gone was the polished cadence she used when talking to relatives or guests or the camera. This was softer, unscripted, a little breathless. "Hey Lily, I don't know if this number still works, but I just found out you were in Italy. At the wedding, or near it. I don't even know." She laughed once, short, nervous. I didn't realize. No one told me you weren't staying at the villa. I just assumed Mom booked everything. I didn't know they left you out. There was a pause then, just air and static, the kind of pause that sounds like someone deciding whether to tell the truth or hang up. "I wish you had told me I miss you." That was it. No dramatic apology. No "let's fix everything." Just those 5 final words, hushed like a secret. "I miss you." The phone slid from my hand, landing beside the half-finished sketch. I stared at the railing, at the soft flutter of cotton in the wind, and suddenly my chest caved in. It wasn't rage I felt, not resentment, not even grief. It was something smaller and sadder, recognition. The kind of ache that comes when someone says the thing you've waited so long to hear, but too late to go back to what once was. I didn't know she didn't know, and she didn't know I had stood beneath olive trees just a hill away while she pledged forever. She didn't know I saw our father toast a future that didn't include me. She didn't know how hard I had tried not to be hurt by being forgotten again. And maybe, just maybe, she had never wanted that. That night, I didn't go out for dinner. I didn't call anyone. I pulled the blanket off the end of the bed and wrapped myself in it like armor, though I knew it couldn't protect me from this kind of unraveling. The crying came slow at first, tight breaths, shallow exhales. Then it hit in waves, great body-shaking sobs that wrung something raw from me. I hadn't cried like that in over a year. Not since the bench near the gelato stand. Not since the final silence in Florence. But this time, the tears weren't from being invisible. They were because, after all the silence, after all the distance, after all the pretending we were fine, she finally saw me. And somehow that hurt more than being forgotten. When I landed back in the US, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Not literally. Airports are never quiet, but the silence was inside me. No nerves. No frantic need to check my phone. No ache in my stomach wondering who might be disappointed in me this time. Just stillness. I didn't tell anyone I was coming back. There was no welcome home sign, no Instagram-worthy reunion. Just me, my suitcase, and a feeling that I wasn't returning to the same life. I was starting a different one. With the money I'd saved from teaching remotely and doing freelance translation work abroad, I found a modest studio apartment on the edge of a city where no one knew my last name. Exposed brick walls, a second-hand couch, a tiny kitchen with cabinets that stuck. It was mine. Every chipped plate and crooked picture frame, mine. I named my podcast The Missing Room, a nod to the wedding villa, to the seat that had never been saved, to the space I was done asking anyone else to fill. I recorded episodes from the floor of my closet with a mic I bought for $50. No fancy intro, no guests, just me talking about estrangement, emotional invisibility, learning to belong to yourself when the people you come from don't know how to hold you. And then it grew. Women started writing in. Hundreds, then thousands. Stories about being left off group texts, of weddings where their names were never engraved, of family dinners where their silence was the only thing noticed. Stories from daughters, sisters, wives, mothers, each one carrying the weight of being invisible in plain sight. They didn't want sympathy. They wanted to be understood, and I understood. I never mentioned names, never said my mom or my sister, but the ones who needed to see themselves in it did. Then one day my phone rang, a number I hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. It was Mom. Her voice was careful, not warm. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if I'd be coming for Christmas. No apology, no reflection, just a placeholder question for the sake of tradition. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt clear. I already made plans, I told her. My voice was soft, not sharp, just firm. Because I had. Annika, The Swedish girl I met in Lisbon who taught me how to make saffron buns and how to say yes without guilt, was hosting a dinner at her place. Mariana and Rafael, the Brazilian couple who once stayed up with me until 3 a.m. because I'd had a bad dream, were bringing wine and laughter. And Jonah, the guy who knew how to read my silences better than my own family ever could, would be sitting beside me, holding my hand, kissing me like I was real. These weren't just friends, they were the people who saw me and stayed. Not out of obligation, out of love. We didn't need matching sweaters or a roast turkey. We just needed each other, and enough chairs for everyone. I used to think being included meant being chosen. Now I know, being seen means choosing yourself. That night, as the candles flickered on our crowded, imperfect table, I looked around and smiled. I wasn't the forgotten sister anymore. I was Lily, whole, wild, free. And I had saved a seat for me.